Hey everyone, and welcome to another tutorial video for the Procedural Foliage Placement tool. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the features that have been added in the 1.1.4 update. And if you look here, I have here the full change log for the update. We're not going to be taking a look at all of this. Some of the stuff is just automatically improved. There's nothing to show. But let's just quickly take a look at what you're getting with this update. I've added a new combined spawning method. This has been a request from many different community members, and I've had this in my mind for a while. You know that the default way of doing it is you have to specify an index for either the actor or the instance static mesh, and you spawn each individual mesh separately. Now there is a way that you can do a combined spawn, and that should definitely speed up your process, especially if you have a lot of different meshes in a really big world. There's also an improvement to hierarchical clusters, and that is that I now have added a separate spawn method that you can use for the high level foliage, and I'm going to be showing you guys exactly what that means. But basically, if you selected prior to this update, if you selected a hierarchical cluster spawn method, the default method for the high level foliage was random, and then the medium and low would then spawn around the high level, right? So that's kind of what it used to do. I changed that, and now the high level can use any of the algorithms that PFT comes with, which in my opinion is a very nice addition. I changed the default trace channel for the tracing of the trees from visibility to camera. I found a community member that did some testing, and he reported that this was actually giving better results for physical material. I did some testing myself, and I didn't really see any difference when it comes to every other case, so I just changed it by default. I also added a trace option here in case you want to revert back to visibility. It's going to take you literally 1 second to do instead of having to go to the blueprint and do it yourself. I've added a helper blueprint that will give you a really big performance boost if you're using hierarchical clusters with instance static meshes. And I'll show you exactly why that is. But I had one user specifically that had a really big world, and he was doing hierarchical clusters, and because he was doing like 10,000, 15,000 entities, he was seeing some hitches in performance when he was selecting the tool. So I offloaded some of that data to a helper blueprint, and that solved the problem. I also added the ability for spawners to overlap in your scene. And again, I know that that was one of the things that some people had mentioned before, and that had to do with the trace channels and collision and all those things. I found the handy way of basically allowing you to overlap your spawners. That means that now in your scene you can set them up any way you want. You don't have to worry about overlaps anymore. I have also made some nice improvements to the way I'm spawning hierarchical instance static meshes. Before, every single time you would press spawn, the little button, it would create a new actor that would house all of the instances per spawn. Now instead, I'm reducing that, and I'm automatically detecting what has been spawned, and all of the same types of trees are going to be using just a single HISM actor. That basically reduces the amount of actors and entities in your outliner significantly if you have a lot of different trees that you spawn. So just nice quality of life improvement. And finally, I added an additional Blutility called Combine Actors to the HISM actor, which further helps you organize all of your instance static meshes into one single actor per foliage type if that's what you want. So with all that said, today we're only going to focus on these 4 things. These are actually the things that I would consider actionable. Things like overlaps, there's nothing to show. You just keep using PFT as you've used it before. So, all right, so let's go ahead and jump into Unreal. And the first thing we'll take a look is the combined spawn method. So, before we do that, I am recording this tutorial while this update is still in the pipeline. I just submitted it last night. So if you're watching this the same day that I put this out, you probably don't have the update, but it should be processed in a couple of days. It's on Epic's hands now. So the first thing that you should check is that you really do have the latest update. So you can go to settings, project settings, and this is the easiest way to find out. If you look at project version, you should see 114. Also on the thumbnail image, notice that I have a little version number here. It should see 114 as well. That's, if you can see that, that means that you have the latest version, and then you will have these options. So I created this little test level so I can show you guys the features, and you can see this is a very simple level with one spawner here. And if I select the spawner right now, I'm going to go down here, and actually I'm going to change this to random location just to prove a point here. I have three different static meshes, a regular pine tree, a little snow tree, and then I have these bushes here. And I have the same exact settings either on actors or instant static meshes. And right now, if you go here, you'll see that there's a new section called Combined Spawn. And if you open that, now you see that there's a simple check. It says, hey, do you want to spawn combined actors? Yes or no? And what is the max spawn number? So by default, it's off. So say I wanted to spawn, we're going to go with the HISMs, the pine trees. I would simply say, hey, the index is 0, spawn HISMs, and you can see that I've spawned all the different trees here. And then I would go back and say, I want to spawn now the snowy trees. I would change the index here to 1. I would press the button, and now we have all the snowy trees here. And that's basically it. Well, now if I go ahead and remove everything and select spawn combined actors, and I click on spawn HISMs, notice that now both have spawned at the same time. And actually it's not both the 3, because now I also have the little bushes. And notice that automatically every single type of mesh is its own HISM actor. You can see them here. So that is basically it. You should now be able to spawn your actors in a combined way. That should save you a lot of time. And obviously what happens if you press the button again? Well, it should behave as expected. You go ahead and spawn HISMs, and all 3 of the meshes should again spawn. And the neat thing here is that notice here on my outliner, I still have only 3 HISM actors. So if I select the snowy trees here, notice that the previous spawn and the new spawn both are using the exact same actor. In the previous version, every single time I would press the spawn button, a new actor would be created, even for the same type of mesh. So even right now, as I keep clicking spawn HISMs and spawn HISMs, it's still only 3 actors here. So that right there gives you a nice little way of organizing your actors. And of course I can go back here and remove all. Now, the cool thing about this combined actors is that it respects the spawn method of each individual actor. That is really cool, because that means that you can have spawn methods be completely separate from the combined actor spawn. And what do I mean by that? Say that you want the snowy trees to spawn, instead of randomly, I want them to spawn along this spline. And all you would have to do is you would go down here to spawn details. You would open it here, and you change the spawn method to whatever you want. In this case, I'm going to say along spline actor. And then you would go to spline actor, and you would add your tag. I already did that, so we don't have to waste a lot of time. And then once you do that, you can come back here and you can simply spawn HISM actors combined. And notice now that at the same time, the white trees follow the spline, while the regular pine trees were random and the regular bushes were random, as you can see here. So this method works with any spawn algorithm, which makes it really, really nice. There is one exception though, and the exception is the hierarchical clusters. And the reason for that is because I'm expecting the spawns to be done in a specific order. High first, medium, and then low. Otherwise, if you do it at the same time, when the spawner tries to spawn a low, if it doesn't find enough mediums, then it would just not spawn them, right? So it still works, but it doesn't work correctly. So that would be the only exception there. Okay, let's go back here to the next one. And now, yep, the next one I wanted to show was the change to the hierarchical clusters, having a different spawn method. So now, what I'll do is, and I'm going to stick to HISM, by the way, but the options are exactly the same. So if I were to come here and I would say, hey, for the pine trees, I want them to be hierarchical clusters. And I come down here to the options, we have a new option here called spawn method for high category. And in this case, I'm going to make the pines to be high. And before this update, it was always random. It would just pick a random location and it would just spawn them. Now you can actually choose whatever you want, right? So you can say, hey, I want to spawn them along spline actor. And if you do that, it'll choose the settings that you have on the sections here. So there's no separate settings. If you choose any other algorithm here, make sure that you have the right settings here. So if I choose the high level to spawn along a spline actor, then make sure that you have the right tag here. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and add it. And I think it was PFD spline, and that's just a regular tag. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back down here. I'm going to disable spawn actors, and I'm going to spawn index 0, which is the pine trees. And I'm going to go ahead and spawn them. And you can see now that we have some trees that have spawned. Now we're going back to the snowy trees and we say, hey, now that we spawned them like that, I want to make this the medium. And we can here go back and say, I want it to be hierarchical clusters. And hierarchical clusters means that this guy is going to be the medium, meaning it's going to spawn around the highs. And the distance here is going to be tricky. So we want to make sure that the distance is between, let me just make it generous, between 400 to 800 to give it a chance to spawn here. And then for this specific one, I want to ignore, well, hold on. I want to ignore the foliage collision, and that's going to help spawn them closer to the high level one here. So if we go back here and we say, hey, I want to spawn index 1, notice that now they've spawned around the highs. And obviously you wouldn't use the same kind of mesh. Usually you would use like a shrub or something like that. But I just wanted to show you guys what I mean here. So it is working. At the high level followed the spline, and then the medium level spawned around the high level. And if I do the exact same thing just for completeness for the little bushes here, again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do it pretty quickly now. Hierarchical clusters, and the clusters are going to be low. And again, I'm going to make this 500 to like 800. And then I go and I use the same thing. Ignore foliage collision. And I increase this and I click on it. Now notice that these have spawned around the medium. So now you have the ability to use your own spawn methods. And I just showed you spline, but of course you can choose any of the methods, right? So feel free to play around with it. I'm not gonna do all of it in the video, but all of these different spawn methods can now be used in hierarchical clusters. So really, really neat. I'm really happy with that. I think it's a really nice addition. If you've been using this method in your project, I think this is going to be a really nice improvement for you. All right. Okay, this is just to show you that I added the trace channel option and made the camera the default. This is basically here. So I'm gonna go down here under trace details. If you expand, you now see that there's an additional trace channel option. And if you want to go back to visibility, all you have to do is change it here. But I find that camera by default still works pretty nicely. And the last thing is to show this new combined actors Blutility. And I'm going to show you exactly why you would want to do that. So let's go ahead and switch. I'm going to go and I'm just going to spawn this guy here. Actually, you know what? Let's just go ahead and change them all to random location. Random location and random location. And let's go ahead and use combined spawning. And if I go ahead and press spawn HISMs, you notice that everything has spawned. Great. So let's go ahead and remove that. And let's just do this real quick. Top and lit. And I am going to half the size of this guy here to, let's say, 500, 600 maybe. And I'm going to move this guy here, and I'm going to duplicate him. And actually, you know what? Let's overlap them just so you can see that it is possible now. And now I'm going to go back to perspective, and you can see that we have two different spawners here. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you can clearly see that it works. And I'm going to simply spawn instance static meshes. Notice that it has spawned even though they're overlapping, and you have all the trees here. And I'm going to come back here and do the exact same thing. And I'm going to spawn. Notice now that there is overlap, and you don't have that edge that you used to have before. So it gives it a much more natural setup here. Now, here's the thing. Each individual spawner is going to have a reference to their own actor. So notice that there is one actor here for these pine trees here, and there's another HISM actor for the pine trees here. And you might want to do it like that to give yourself more control, because you can always come back to this spawner here and say, hey, I want to remove all, and it'll remove these actors here. But say that you're happy with the full setup and you want to finalize your scene. What you can do now is you can combine these actors as long as they have the same static mesh. So say that I want to choose this actor that has all of the regular pine trees on for this spawner, and I want to combine them with these guys here. So what you would do is you would select the actor itself and go under setup, and notice that now there's a new option here called combined actors list. And it's an array, so you would just add as many as you want. And you can use the little dropper tool here, and you can say, hey, I want to combine these pine trees with this guy right here. And notice that I now have actor 25, which is this guy right here. And now I go back to my original one, and I simply click on combine actors. And as soon as you do that, notice that now my one single actor now has all of the pine trees selected. You see that if I go back to the snow trees, there's two, but if I go back to the pine trees, there is only one. Now notice now that this one is still owned by the original spawner, so that's something that you have to understand. So you can't really revert back. This is kind of a final step. But again, it clears out all of the actors. So now if we do the same thing here and we say, hey, I want the snow trees from this side as well, combine actors, now they're being combined. And let's just go ahead and do it for this one here. And I want to do the shrubs on this side as well. Combine actors. And now we went from from 6 to only 3. And each individual actor owns all of the instances for that specific mesh type. And that should give you a very nice way of organizing your scene. I know a lot of you have really massive worlds, and you have a lot of different meshes, and you have all these different configurations. So my recommendation would be, if you're doing world composition and you're doing a separate spawner per tile, do not combine them, because obviously that means that when one tile loads, all of the foliage for all the tiles will load. So only do this if you're not using world composition. That would be my advice. And do it as a final step where you just want to completely finalize and merge all the actors together. Obviously, you have to play with the settings and do what fits your project, but that would be kind of my general recommendation. All right, guys, and that is pretty much it. That is what's coming in the 1.14 update. I want to thank all of you guys that made recommendations. I saw some comments on YouTube, and some of you guys have DM'd me on Discord and just, had a nice conversation on the channel. I've said this before, and I kind of keep saying it again. The reason why I feel like my assets continue to improve over time is because I actually do take your suggestions seriously. And even if it takes me a couple of months, I always write them down and I come back to them. So thank you guys for your suggestions. I hope you like the update. If you have any other suggestions or comments, leave them in the comments below here on YouTube, or hey, join our Discord chat and come talk to us. We're always there, and I'm pretty active there as well. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you in the next video.